Welcome to the Running Channel podcast with me, Rick Kelsey, and my absolutely wonderful friends, Andy Baddeley and Sarah Hartley. Right, we're talking about SuperShoes, but you know what? I never run in SuperShoes.
Oh, I think they would absolutely blow your mind.
Yeah, but you've been smashing PBs left, right and centre in 2024, so maybe you don't need them.
Aha, that's my question. Will they make me faster?
Well, good question, because that's what we're going to answer today. We're going to go through, will SuperShoes make you faster? Are they right for everyone? And how do they actually work? And who have they been tested on? And do they make you a faster runner?
And I'll be honest, I actually quite like to see Rick run in SuperShoes at this stage, just for my own personal pleasure and enjoyment. But we're also going to be covering running news and also answering your questions. Let's get into it.
Do you want to see me run in SuperShoes because of how I performed on the, what's it called? The Travelator at the National Running Show.
So we spent last weekend at the National Running Show, which is at the NEC National Exhibition Centre in Birmingham. It is where a lot of running brands all come together. A lot of you wonderful Running Channel fans also come together. And we just had a party for the whole weekend. But definitely one of the highlights was seeing you run on a giant treadmill, attempting world record marathon pace and looking more like
Captain Jack
you
Sparrow.
were running to the nail salon.
I don't know. I don't know what you were doing.
And you were about
with your hands.
10 minutes late for your appointment.
But it started off fine, but you had to run, like you say, at
21.1k an
You
hour.
like turned into a waiter.
kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
Marathon world record pace. So it started off quite slowly, and I was like, okay, yeah, that was a bit of a joke. Let's look like I'm
The
swimming.
fact that you were in your
and then
chinos.
and I was in my chinos, and it just got ridiculously fast, and I was just bouncing along, and it was straight at the off from the morning, 9 a.m. on the dot. We just got up, straight down. We'd walk. We'd walk from the hotel.
I'd run 7 miles by that point.
Come on. I'd walk from the hotel. We were the national.
You hadn't walked for the hotel. Andy'd given you a lift, mate.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true.
But the hotel was so far away. The
hotel was a 2-minute walk away from the car park.
It was in Coventry. And we were in Birmingham.
Who picked the hotel?
The best thing was that
Andy.
as you were running on this huge treadmill and you were trying to get up to 21k an hour, there was a lovely gentleman operating the treadmill, and he could see the screen and I could see the screen. And I hate to break it to you, I don't think you ever actually got to world record marathon pace because he was too scared to let you do it.
Did you lie to me? Because I asked you when I got off, did I get up to pace? And you said to me, I don't know.
I think you got there, but I genuinely don't think you were there for that long because you were you were one of the later ones of us to do it. We'd all had a go at it. They give you a very, very clear briefing when you get on the treadmill as to how to run on it and where to run.
Yeah, I ignored it.
Within about the first 5 seconds, you were in completely the wrong spot on the treadmill, so they had to slow it down and go again. And then every time that the speed just ramped up a little bit, you did look like you were going. Something catastrophic was going to happen. So then he would dial it back down again, and then you looked all right, and then it went back up again and then back down again. So that was very entertaining.
Yeah, it was a good fun weekend though.
It was absolutely brilliant.
The caption that got put on TikTok was when your stomach starts to make that rumble on a run.
Well, I've got lots of notes from the running show.
Good.
Just because and. Sorry, Sarah, you and I had a lovely time. We spoke to some amazing people. We were brought to tears at various points by some of the emotional stories that we had from our Running Channel community, from some of the club members that we got to meet, which was fantastic. But all of my notes, the reason I'm apologising, all of my notes are about Rick. Which I don't think will surprise you.
What is coming here?
That's fine. I have some notes about you.
Okay, so I'm going to go in with two of the main ones. One, 9 o'clock start, Saturday morning for everybody. We'd all got there the night before. Rick.
Some of us bothered to show up.
Yeah. So Rick also was booked in for a speaking slot on the stage with Tom and Jess from Running Channel.
A quite conservative 11:15.
Yeah. So
which is 2 hours and 15 minutes after your call time of 9. Actually, no, sorry, your call time was 8:15.
Yeah. So before you go, Rick, just 11:15, pretty reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Had you even managed to make it in time for that slot at 11:15?
No, but I would like to show and prove how committed I am to the Running Channel by the fact that even though I got there at 11:42, instead of doing what many people might do, I'll just let them get on with it. I walk straight onto the stage.
I'm not sure that that's really helping your case here, mate. I think that shows that you are committed. You're such a drama queen that you just couldn't cope watching on from the wings.
So I stepped in. Tom and Jess asked me to jump in, and so I went on stage. We were 3/4 of the way through, and then the best bit of this was in front of all of the people watching, you did just walk on like you were some kind of savior, waving to the crowd, Don't worry, everybody, I'm here. But the best thing about that was the next morning, I just come out of the shower, we're sharing a room again, and I heard you on the phone to your lovely wife, giving a rendition of the day before. Oh my goodness, it was so difficult. I got there really late. I was supposed to be there, and there was hundreds of people.
Should we just give you some like? Obviously, we're giving you a lot of stick. The trains were all cancelled.
Yes.
There were cows on the line.
I am going to
There
fight
was
my
a
own corner in a
storm.
second.
Okay, fine.
No,
Sorry.
we'll move on straight
All right.
after this.
Well, I won't fight it for you.
But it was the brazenness of I don't think you realised I was listening in to this phone call. But then you said, yeah, I got there and there were hundreds of people listening and I was late, so I had to go on stage. You absolutely did not. We were fully under control. There was no requirement at all for you to go on stage.
Fine. Yes. Completely fine. Well, can we just move swiftly on then? You're fine.
It's fine. The trains were a bit late. Rick didn't make it.
Yeah,
that's
classic
all we
Rick.
need. Yeah,
the trains were late. Apparently,
there was a
good
moment.
excuse.
Andy said to me
on par with my dog ate my homework.
There was a point on the stage where I'm sitting next to Andy on the sofa, and I was like, "All right, Andy, you can go now." Just joking. And Andy thought I was being serious. He whispered to me, and he goes, "Do you really want me to go?" And he only ever gives me that voice when he's deadly not sure about what's happening.
Hey, I mean, I didn't even get a look in. So when you texted to be like, "I'm so sorry, the trains are cancelled. I'm trying to get a taxi to get over," I turned to Tom and went, "Oh, that just means you and Jess will be on your own. Let me know if you want me or Andy to step in." Next thing I know, the talk started. I didn't even get asked.
Tom came to me. He didn't even mention that you were in the running for that.
Honestly,
I don't
and
think
then
he considered
later,
you at all.
then you ratted him out. He came over to me and was like, "Look, no hard feelings. It's just I thought we needed the CEO." And I was like, rude, so rude. But we had a wonderful day on Saturday, met loads of lovely people. And then what happens, it's a 2-day show, Saturday, Sunday. What happens on the Saturday night is once the show's closed and the security guards, who were so punctual this year, like usually it closes at 5 and then there are a few stragglers who are wanting to chat to people. Literally bang on 5. It was, "Please, can I see your wristband? You don't have one? The door's that way."
Yeah.
Out you go. And there's basically an awards. There's some kind of celebratory drinks afterwards. And our dinner booking wasn't till 8 p.m. So we stayed, we chatted, we hung around. And on the walk to dinner, I captured quite possibly the best interaction I've ever had with Rick.
It was the three of us walking back to dinner.
I'm getting hammered here.
Should we have a little listen? Okay, ready?
Are you recording me?
No. Sorry, what did you say you were going to do?
I said the end game is basically that I just give in.
To what, Rick? To running a marathon?
The end game is that basically you just annoy me to the point that I've had enough, where I've basically had enough already.
Yeah.
And I just give in and do it.
And do 26.2 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not at that point yet anyway.
So what I heard was you admit you were so ground down by us both that and by everyone that had spent all day on the Running Channel stand asking if you're going to run a marathon.
Yeah, I mean,
maybe the question that we're answering in this episode is: does Rick need to wear SuperShoes for his marathon?
Yeah. So we are.
Look at his face.
The amount of people who came up to me and went, "Rick, are you going to run a marathon?" Like, if I had £1 for every single one of them, I would have had enough money just to go on holiday in Cape Town and not run it.
Well, you want to do Cape Town Marathon? Perfect. Well, that sounds good.
No,
That sounds great because it will be a major soon.
Well,
so
no,
then
there was
you're ahead of the
There was a
curve.
suggestion.
There's also my other note was just that this is a lovely thing about. We were at dinner as well. We are going to talk about SuperShoes. We were talking about, we all love a lot of the running channel like football or soccer. And Roy Keane is one of the most famous pundits in the world.
Yeah.
And the conversation
Great
we were
pundit.
having is, that was the conversation was, is Roy Keane a good pundit? And then ultimately the decision was, from a kind of tactical and technical stuff that he says, there are way better pundits. And I love watching him. But he brings in the views. He's there to provide the value, the entertainment, but absolutely zero, technical content.
Like Rick.
Exactly. Rick is the Roy Keane of the Running Channel podcast. I mean, also, I would love to regularly give you as many red cards as Roy Keane got in his career. We just send you off in the middle of the podcast.
Oh, you know what? Well, I'm glad you guys worked so hard over the weekend, and you got all this great,
We did get a lot of content.
that just seems to be, taking the mick out of me. So that was fantastic. Did you meet any nice people?
So many lovely people. So, honestly, we sit here in a room putting this out every week, and we see people kind of your reactions online, and it's very rare that we actually get to see that many people in person telling us that we're doing all right.
Yeah.
And it is so wonderful to see not only the people who we're speaking to, but also hear like why what we does matters to them.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for listening, watching, consuming whatever running channel content you do consume, and we will try and keep doing it as well as we can.
Yeah, it made it all, I mean, it's worthwhile because I get to spend the week with you guys doing the podcast and stuff, but it was more worthwhile even more to meet these people that are, like you say, just saying nice things. It's nice to have people nice things, but
it's a little ego boost.
Yeah, meeting the people though who'd say, oh, when I listened to this podcast or watched this video episode, I was at this stage in my running, or I hadn't even started running and someone recommended that I watch it.
Yeah.
And yeah, you can sometimes lose sight of that, and it was absolutely incredible to meet these wonderful people. And we got to talk to people about the Running Channel Club and what that might mean for them if they wanted to, take their running onto or be supported in that way, and listen to the slightly bonkers extra episodes that we have on the that we have on the Running Channel Club.
Because I know the listeners will be eager to hear this, can I just give my update of my 5K training?
Do you think they'll be eager to hear that?
I think they will. I had a lot of conversations about Sarah's training method.
Yes.
So I'd like to give a little update because it is SuperShoes relevant.
It's just run as far as you can at 5K pace and just increase that every week is your tactic.
So essentially very simple methodology. You kind of train as normal, but at one point in the week 1, you run 1K at your desired 5K pace. Now, there was a little bit of a conversation last week about whether I should do week 2, 2K at 5K pace, or whether I should skip ahead to week 3. After setting up the stand on the Friday and a slightly frustrating conversation with moving house situations, I was fueled by anger. So I went and did a 3K time trial on the treadmill, and I did it.
So 12 minutes?
That's your pace.
At pace. 12 minutes, 3 kilometres, 4-minute K pace.
Yeah, that's right.
6-minute miling. No.
6:26 miling, I think.
6:26 miling. 15 kilometres per hour, I think, maybe 14. Boshed it. Then I came off the treadmill, went and told Tito, and he went, I just never trusted treadmill speed though.
I agree with him.
I would find it hard on the treadmill. So if it's obviously it's horses for courses, I don't know whether it's just which way around it is for you. But if it was me, I'd be more confident that I could go and do it outdoors if I could do it on the treadmill.
Yeah, because there's less, fingering the button.
Well, now I need to work out what the next step in my training plan is, probably to do some actual training, which I will start in February because I do want to do this at the end of
Pieces. It's just not as structured as you've previously done.
Hang on. You've done 3 kilometres at pace.
Yeah.
Next week, you're going to do 4 at pace.
Well, I think so, yeah, because February doesn't start technically until the weekend that this comes out. So this week, I reckon I'll go do 4.
4 at pace. So
then I'll do a little bit of kind of actual interval sessions, and then Bob's your uncle.
You're not far off.
I know. I'm well excited.
Not far.
But do you know what the most exciting thing is?
Yeah.
That 3 kilometres I did in a non-carbon plated shoe. So should we talk about whether you do? I was going to say,
you're going to wear it. Are you going to wear carbon plates for your attempt? Well, have you worn carbon plated shoes for all of your PBs to date in every distance?
Ooh, good question. Marathon, yes. 5K, yes. 10K, no.
Okay.
What other distances are there?
Half
marathon, yes. But I want to come on because for most of those, I'm not wearing the same carbon plated shoe that the elites are wearing. So should we get into what they are, how they work, why you would wear them, what you would wear them for?
Yeah, and the main point being that, we're going to come to it in loads of detail, but most of the research is done on faster runners.
Yeah.
And we get loads of questions from people saying, I'm going to run this time for the marathon. Should I bother with carbon plated shoes? And there's not a hard and fast answer, so I'm going to sort of preempt any disappointment that we don't give like a definitive yes or no, but we are going to give you the context that will be useful.
That really surprised me about all the research, the majority of the research that's been done into carbon plated shoes, that it's been done into runners who run a marathon at a time faster than 3 hours, 15 minutes.
And a lot of it's even faster than that.
Exactly. Yeah. And what we know from analysing the world's biggest marathons and looking at thousands of runners who take part in them is that the average time that a marathon is run is 4:15 to 4:20.
Yeah.
So much of this research that's been done into SuperShoes is for the elite end
and
of
that's
the
not
industry.
just with SuperShoes either. It's kind of like across the board. And so it is definitely worth thinking about. Like we were talking about it with kind of training over the weekend as well in our talks. Like a lot of the kind of scientific evidence that is out there will be tailored towards an elite athlete that is training 8, 9, 10 times a week. So when you trickle that down to someone who might only be running 3 times a week, it is worth kind of taking that into consideration.
Yeah, but and I think it's how research works in most industries as well. So a lot of the technology comes from the performance end. So Formula One, that technology then trickles down into regular cars eventually. Yeah. But the testing's never done at 50 miles an hour.
No.
The testing's done in a wind tunnel at whatever it might be, 200
you
miles
take
an hour.
the extreme.
So that's the analogy here, and we're just now getting to the point where we want to see more data and definitive answers as to how it would help someone running, a 4.5 or 5 hour marathon.
Yeah, because the kind of the elephant in the room definitely with SuperShoes is the price and the cost.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the kind of caveat is, yes, okay, it might not cost £200 to make that specific pair of shoes.
No.
However, the amount of research and development that goes to get them to that stage is why the cost is inflated so much to account for all of the money that's gone into getting it to that point.
What would class a shoe as a super shoe now? Because it's not simply the carbon plate, it's also the foam and the design, isn't it?
Yes, so usually it's that combination of those two things. And the science is still not that clear on exactly where the benefit comes from. But it's pretty clear on that you need these super springy foams that give you this incredible energy return. And so you're getting kind of more back in each step. But you need the carbon plate to give the foam the kind of structure and rigidity to allow you to get the most out of it, because the foams are very soft. So if you don't have, if you took the carbon plate out of most of the top super shoes, they'd be really, really spongy and very hard to run in.
Yeah.
So you need that combination to kind of propel you forward. So that's what makes a super shoe, is that the carbon plate of a very specific curvature, and different brands use different techniques for that.
And
then the compound of foam.
Yeah, supercritical foam. There's also dual density foam. There's like lots of different...
Yeah, and then lots of them are assembled in different ways, like as to how they're put together. And some of them, the plates are right at the top of the foam, some of it's at the bottom, some of it's in the middle, some of them it curves from the top to the middle. And
some are rods, like there's lots of different things. And that's what's really interesting, is that when carbon plates kind of first came to the market, it was the Nike Vaporfly 4% in 2017, which aimed to provide competitive runners a 2.7 to 4.2% boost in running economy. And then since then, we've seen super shoes pop up across all different brands, and that all of the foam technologies will be slightly different, or they'll be using slightly different methods. The plates will be in the shoes in slightly different ways. And so that's why we want to give a bit more information, because there's so much choice out there. It's hard to know what will work best for you.
Yeah, and starting with women in particular, so elite women, we are going to move on to sort of normal runners, I guess, but elite women, there seems to have been a markedly different impact on women's distance running, 5K, 10K, half marathon, marathon times, due to super shoes than for men's. And there's lots of different sort of reasonings put forward, but one of them being that on average, your elite women's marathon runner is so light but they're still getting the benefit of this 40 millimeter limit of the stack height.
It is interesting that the stack height rules are exactly the same, because there's not many instances where the rules for women are the same for men, whereas that just seems to one where there is it's just across the board the same.
Yeah, and I think that I could be wrong here. Someone might correct me, but I'm going to say it because it's what I remember hearing, is that actually I think that they measure that on a particular...
Oh, yes, you're right.
On an average. So like if you were a men's size 13, then you've probably got more than 40 mil of stack height.
Yeah.
But that's still within the rules.
Yeah.
So that's quite confusing in itself. And I also remember, I can't name the brands who I spoke to, but I've spoken to various brands who've said that during the prototyping phase of developing the next super shoe. So right now, some of the elite athletes will be testing 2026 or 2027's super shoes. And that there are individual athletes for whom the brands will completely fine tune the foam. So they might look exactly the same, and that runner might be testing 3 different versions of a shoe where if you looked at it, it was identical, but the compound of the foam is different. So to try and find, because a lot of the testing might be done on a 60 or 70 kilogram male runner, it's then like, well, if we're making the next shoe and our highest profile female distance runner is trying to break the world record, it would make sense to try and adjust how dense that foam is, whether it's slightly lighter, whether it's slightly firmer, bouncier, whatever it might be. Send them different versions of it, and then do a bunch of testing on their individual physiology, like getting them in the lab, getting them wearing a mask, and work out how much energy it takes them to run at different paces. But that's the level of detail for an individual runner. Just making complete one-off pair of shoes.
But it's such a good point. I was listening to another podcast recently talking about like body image over the years, and they were saying like the big shift in the like 19th century when it went from everyone had their clothes like individually made for them, and so there was no kind of mass sizing. And it's the same with shoes. Like there are only a certain number of sizes, but I bet most people listening to this will be either a X or X shoe size, depending on all of the different brands. So then if you think about it, the elite runners will maybe even have like the size adjusted slightly or like the shape of the shoe as well. So that's another factor to consider of like, you do have to find the best fit for you from what is out there. And it might not be that one size in one shoe is the same in another.
They're built around something called a last, which is like a heavyweight model of a foot size. And then every brand's last for their super shoes and for their regular shoes will be totally different. So if you've got a like wide, shallow foot or a narrow, high arched foot, all of that stuff, that's why you do need to find a brand. And
I just wonder when people look at getting a shoe for a race, whether they're just thinking maybe too much now about the speed that they're running the race and not the stability of the shoe that they're wearing.
It's so important. Yeah. You've obviously got this injury history.
Yeah. I mean, on a real simple level, if you look at the base of a super shoe, less of the shoe is touching the ground.
Yeah, in most cases that's true.
Less
There's
of the
also
shoe.
grip.
Yeah, and when I have worn super shoes, which is very limited, basically, a couple of training runs that Sarah and I have been on, I've found the stability really difficult. And there's no way that I would personally run a marathon in a super shoe because the time I'm doing, I don't think I get an enormous amount of gain out of them, and I'd much rather have some springy foam and some cloud-like shoes to run in. and B, I would be concerned about the stability of the shoe for someone who's got, a compromised
Like your mechanics.
Compromised mechanics, who's had previously compromised mechanics in case I did roll over and did take a knock off.
I think you've hit on a really good point there, and that is why it's really exciting that the super shoe market is expanding, because previously we just had the kind of high end, as light as possible super shoe plate, super light foam. Now what we're seeing even more is the introduction of, I guess, what people would call tempo shoes. So
super trainers, I suppose.
Like a couple of examples. You've got the Super Trainer, I think is New Balances. You've also got the Puma Deviate Nitro. So these are plated shoes, but the foam is like a little bit more dense. The shoe's a little bit more weighty. The upper's a little bit more structured. There's less of a focus on making the shoe as light as possible. And actually that's what I've used for kind of half marathon and marathon
It's
PBs
a hybrid between
as
the
well.
two.
It's a hybrid. You've still got the plate in there. They still feel that little bit faster and a bit more responsive, but the stability's there. So definitely like if you are someone that's running kind of over 4 hours for a marathon, over 5, 6, whatever it might be, test out a few kind of super trainers as well as super shoes just to get that different feel.
Yeah, and remember that even if you went to a running store and got someone to watch you running in them, remember that you're fresh and running at your best possible. That's your best possible version of your mechanics, is that running store treadmill test. Whereas after 3 or 4 hours of running, you're going to be really tired and everything's going to be exaggerated. So then that's when Rick's stability question's really, really useful.
And your mechanics go.
Yeah.
I mean, so for you, because you ran Valencia in super shoes, didn't you?
Yes, I did,
Yeah. But for me, running a marathon, it wouldn't work. But then again, I would be willing, and I might do it this weekend, I might try out a fast 5K in them, because my mechanics are not going to be compromised over 5K, because I can still pull myself up straight, and do the pop it on the string job over
so your
5K.
posture's good,
My posture's good.
Yeah.
But if it get, once you go past kind of, you're getting towards half marathon kind of distance, it's far more difficult.
Well, that's also the main point, I suppose, would be that it's all about absolute pace. So your absolute pace in the 5K is much closer to, say, my marathon pace. And therefore, that's the pace at which these shoes give you the most benefit. Is that
he's
fast?
admitted I've got 2 paces. Yes.
And that is backed up by studies as well. So, for example, there was a study by Dustin Joubert that was done in 2022, tested 2 different super shoes and looked specifically at speeds. And the runners gained 1.4% in running economy over 8-minute miling pace, whereas it was 2.7 to 4.2% advantage gained at 7:26 per mile or faster. So it is showing like the faster you're running, the more advantage you're getting from these shoes.
And the same study, less than 1% benefit at a speed of around 9:40 per mile. So yeah, and I think that's that's my own experience. And I often talk about the shoe. We have the luxury of testing loads of super shoes. I like a super shoe that has more versatility. I would talk about it, so it feels good over a wider range of pace.
Yeah.
And generally, those are the more supportive, easier to run in super shoes. Whereas the fastest all-out ones that are super tuned to like Calvin Kiptum's world record marathon pace, they feel great for me running a 5K.
Yeah.
But even for me, if I slow down below that all-out pace for me, knowing those shoes have been tested at like under 3 minutes per kilometre, then they just don't feel very good.
It's like
Because you're not using the foam as much.
Yeah.
Because the foam's not as responsive.
Yeah, I think it's about the rate of change of the compression of the foam. So it's how fast you're rolling through and activating the
You're
foam.
getting more out of the foam
Yeah.
by going faster. Yeah.
Well, let us know. Do you use super shoes, and are you on the lookout for a super shoe if you've got a race coming up? They might make you faster, and really, I think what we've covered here is that it should be down to you. How does it feel? Does it give you an effect? It might even be that it's just a placebo effect, but if you can run that race, get that PB or goal or whatever you want, and the shoe makes you feel comfy and isn't giving you any kind of issues or niggles or anything, then crack on and let us know how you get on.
Yeah, we'd love to find out what you've found, the type of runner that you think you are, and then whether there's a particular shoe that works for you, because the brands are so different. How the shoes feel, how they fit, how firm they are, how much they support you. It's radically different. So it's not a case of, oh, super shoes don't work for me or super shoes do work for me. You've got to find the right one.
But what we do know is that, focusing on speed work and your running economy is going to be better than any shoe.
Yeah.
Definitely. So this is the Running Channel podcast. Up next, we've got the news, and then we will move on to your questions.
Right, news time. Should we talk about the Arc of Attrition 50?
Yes. So the Arc of Attrition has 3 races. You've got the 25 miler, 50 miler, and 100 miler, and it is an absolutely beautiful but also brutal race along the Cornish coastline.
Oh, this looks stunning.
It's beautiful, but I think
To the point where you want to do 50 miles?
No.
Okay, fair enough.
what about 40k, the 25er? No.
But I'd watch.
Yeah, it does look cool to watch. I think what everyone always says is when you look at the elevation of these races, it's quite surprising because you would think it's just flat along the coastline, but actually you're going down onto the beach and back up again and down and back up.
Brutal.
The 50 miler was particularly interesting. Tom Evans took the win and set a course record in 6 hours, 54 minutes and 40 seconds. Also, very excitingly, it was the first race for him as an ASICS athlete.
Yeah.
So very cool for him to do that. Equally though, I want to shout out Elsie Davis, who won the women's race in 7 hours, 55 minutes and 48 seconds. And also she has like a 10 or 13 day old baby at home.
Oh, really?
So that
10 days.
10 day old?
yeah. As in her wife gave birth, not her.
Oh, right. I was going to, yeah.
Otherwise, that would have been incredibly
they're
impressive.
Superhuman,
Yeah.
Yes, but even so, the pressure and the
sleep
stress of the
deprivation as well, yeah.
This is one of my favourite parts of the world where that take place.
Yeah.
Absolutely stunning. The southwest Cornish path.
It's not on our notes, but I've got one very quick news piece as well that we witnessed a world record firsthand. Or we were present in the building for it.
Did.
World record for the
48 hours run on the
treadmill. Yeah.
Sophie Power, who heads up She Races, and it was phenomenal. She started on the Friday as we were all busy setting up. We heard her start off, and then midway through our talk on the Sunday, she finished. She'd set the record at 6 a.m, but she carried on going until 2:30, and absolutely smashed it. And her goal with all of this stuff is to raise awareness of women's research in sport as well. And she said her goal is for her daughter to one day turn around to her and go, "What do you mean? There's no barrier to entry in sport," which is incredible. So well done, Sophie.
Love it.
I can't imagine being in the National Exhibition Centre at 4 a.m. running on a treadmill.
I know. Do you think that would be quite eerie?
Eerie.
She did have a team around her, but still,
Eerie.
I would want to know. I'd want a camera on the other side of the hall to know if anyone else is there.
Exactly. Some excellent questions today. Should we do some?
Let's.
Jess from Bristol. Hi, Sarah, Rick and Andy. I'm writing to you after having finished running intervals up the steps of Wembley Arena at 5 a.m.
Nice.
Where's this going? It got me thinking, where's the weirdest location you've ever done a workout? For context, I'm staying at the Hilton Wembley for work and fancied some fresh air rather than a treadmill. After failing to find a way to lap the stadium, I settled for some sprints up and down the steps. Look forward to hearing about your weird and wonderful workout arenas.
That is problem solving at its finest. Can
Isn't
I
it great?
go?
Go on.
This isn't a workout, but at the National Running Show, we were staying right next to the airport. And so Mark, who writes for
Coventry Airport.
Probably where you
Airport.
ended up.
Mark, who writes for our website, found a loop. So we went and did that on the Sunday morning, 7-mile loop, and it was essentially a lap of the airport. My Strava comments on it are hilarious because it's literally a perfect circle around it. And there was a wonderful moment where me, Mark and Meg were happily like running along, pitch black. We're on this lovely little path that's going through some fields.
Torches?
They did. I didn't bring a head torch because I didn't think. So I was just using the torch on my watch and mainly their head torch light as well. But it was fine. And we were running along with the airport to our left, and we look left and we go, it's the runway. That's so cool. I wonder if a plane's about to take off. Suddenly we hear this, we look right, and it's the runway where the planes come in. And I have never been that close to a plane before. Like, honestly, it felt like it was a meter above our heads.
Oh my gosh.
I stopped
Did
running.
you duck?
Yeah. I just stopped running and let it come in and then carried on
funny.
going. It was terrifying.
You let the plane go before you crossed the road.
Yeah, literally. And I was like, that's so dumb because it will never just drop out the sky. But it was terrifying.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
I've done the very similar workout to what Jess was talking about, but we did it for a challenge for the running channel, and the challenge was how much elevation can you gain in the space of your 10k PB time. So I had whatever it was, half an hour to do it.
Nice.
And I just decided to run up and down the steps, and they're like fire escape steps
remember
in our
this.
old office.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Did you win this challenge? Because I
No.
did it. I did it at Ali Pally
Yes.
and didn't
Neither of us
get
won.
on too well.
No, Kate won because she did it on a treadmill.
Right.
Just set the incline to like 10% and walked on the treadmill for
Clever.
40
Yeah.
minutes.
I did a workout on an active volcano once.
Was that with
2016.
Klumpfler?
No, it wasn't in Iceland. It was actually in a big island in Oahu. No, it wasn't Big Island. Big Island in Hawaii.
Hawaii.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just for
Hawaii is called Hawaii. I
Just
think Big
for a
Island.
quick explainer then, Sarah
Yeah.
mentions Klumpfler, which is Rick's horse companion that he rode up a volcano in Iceland at one point, and we have talked about it in detail
Yeah.
on the club podcast. It's quite a sad
Sadly,
story.
my horse died on
God,
the
I
way up,
can't
on the way up
revisit
the
this
volcano.
again.
But yeah, more details in the club.
Of course, we're not laughing at what happened. We're just laughing at the way that Rick tells his
The way
ridiculous
that
story. Oh my
Sorry.
goodness.
Oh, poor
Yeah.
Klumpfler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, have we got time for another one?
Let's do
Yeah, I
one
think
One more,
so, yeah.
one more. Okay, this is from Paul O'Donnell from the club. I'm on my 3rd week of my marathon plan for Newport Marathon, and I was hoping to get some motivation and advice. I have done a few marathons, and in every one I suffer from cramp in my calves. I don't suffer on training runs, longest being 21 miles, and it seems to kick in about 23 or 24 miles on race day. Oh my gosh. So only 2 miles from the finish, it kicks in. I hydrate well. And in my last marathon, I tried salt tablets, but still suffered. Any advice would be greatly appreciated. Salt tablets, they normally work against this type of stuff?
Well, I think from everything that I've read, the jury's out on how much hydration has an impact on cramp. And I don't know. So this is going to be rubbish because I don't have a clear answer. But what I do have is exactly the same question. This was exactly my experience in my marathon. And I think for me, it was down to the conditioning, and my muscles and my body just couldn't do it because I hadn't done enough running. I hadn't spent enough time on my feet, and I hadn't done enough mileage to run at the pace and intensity that I was trying to do for that amount of time. And this is the same thing, really. Longest run's 21 miles. You're going into the unknown at that point, and your body might not have the conditioning. So, I mean, I'm a big believer, whether the science backs me up or not, I'm not sure, that making yourself stronger and really like pushing muscles to fatigue in training
I agree.
is the best way to avoid cramp. So my plan for my next marathon will be to really just be hammering the calf raises within reason to, you have
Absolutely.
to balance it with training, because then you've got to go out and do your longest run the next day.
Yeah.
Absolutely battering yourself at calf raises the night before is probably not the way to go. But like combining that kind of repeated conditioning from a strength and conditioning perspective on the things that are your weakness, I think is the way to address that.
And I think physical, we often talk about mental strength and physical strength, but they can come the opposite way round. So you can get mental strength from having strong physical strength. So if you're worried, it gives you the confidence. Because if you're worried about this going at 24 miles, 2 miles to go, if you know that your calves are in the best condition that they can possibly be, your head won't be thinking about it as much, and you won't be worrying about it for most of the race.
Yeah, and I think that's all you can do. Try and take the doubt out of your mind by just controlling the controllables.
Yeah, push those calves
Best
to their
of luck
limits.
for Newport Marathon, Paul. Owen is also running Newport Marathon, so you'll be able to see producer Owen out on the course.
So many people running Newport Marathon.
Yeah,
feel
I spoke to a lot of them at the running
loads
show.
of people came out to. I
It's a nice
I did
flat
get told
one,
about
apparently.
a few cool marathons as well. There's one Flawed Hero Marathon which takes place in Letchworth Garden City that starts at midnight.
Yeah,
I
on the
heard
same
about-
day as the London Marathon, I think.
I think same.
And
day
it's
as
a
well, yeah.
huge charity initiative, and there's people walking it and all that sort of stuff. So yeah,
Bank
Flawed
Critic
Hero as in
Cancer UK.
FLAWED.
Yeah,
I spoke
yeah.
to that chap as well, and I did
Yeah.
say that we'd mentioned it on the podcast. So
Oh,
please go and check that out.
cool. That sounds really cool.
I just heard about loads.
Were
of
you
different
getting
events.
research to choose which one you want to do?
Well, a guy from Sports Tours, Ben, who we went to Malaga with, said to me, if there was one event, just give me one, and what would it be that you do? And I said it would be the
Honolulu Marathon. Of course.
I might do that.
Well, that's
Look
December.
at Andy's face.
I was just immediately thinking, well, I'd quite like to come on that one as well. So
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
I would
Should we make a
happily
day
get
of it?
out of bed to support you in a marathon.
I'll run
I
it
think it's
with
4
you.
a.m. start.
Oh, I'll be out on the course. But anyway, email in if there are any marathons that you want to see Rick do. We'll sign him up to all of them.
Nice to see you
You could do
again.
100 before the end of the year. I'm
Not doing
joking.
marathon.
And we will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye-bye.